How we doing here? Feel like we got a couple things going on. Hold on. Perfect. Okay. I think we are live and rolling. Awesome. So thank you everyone for joining me here. Let me grab my drink while we're settling in. Okay. So one, if everyone stopped by to check this out, very much appreciate it. I know last night we had a long stream over on Heavy Metallurgy talking about album club stuff, and so I appreciate anyone who stopped by. Awesome. Thanks, Devin. You checked out that Capilla Ardiente from last night? Sweet. Yeah. No, they're hands down my favorite Doom band going right now. There we go. My age is showing. I'm a little bit sloppy after last night, Chris. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it was a long affair. We stayed up for another couple hours just chatting afterwards, but my tech issues hopefully are resolved now. My mic was a little bit hot last night too, I guess, to start. So hopefully it's coming through fine and clear for everyone. But this is a little bit of a follow-up from last week. I'll just kind of thank anyone who watched last night. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge we had a really good turnout for the end of the year stream, and I talk about the end of year records. I will be doing another one over on gas mask and hand grenades. So if you do want to check out, we talk about, I guess, 24 records from 2024. We'll be doing that next Saturday, I believe, on the 4th. Hey, got a notification. We'll hang out. Okay. Good to see you Sunday. The third Boston album today. You know, I think it's safe to say, Jeff, we can Boston will not be part of this stream. That's hilarious. I didn't know. I mean, I guess I didn't know you were a Boston fan. It might be in your wheelhouse. But anyway, what we'll do here is I just want to do a brief recap because I talked a lot about this more freely last week. It was pretty low key, and I want to keep this tonight sort of easy. But I did have a fun time doing a live stream sort of end of year thing last year. So this will be a mix of some things I've done in the past, and it'll be something different for you. It's more of a feeling. You know, well said, Sunday. I hope Jeff can chime in there. But yeah, so let's kind of talk about this theme. So I'll bring this to the fore. So like I mentioned, this is going to be a little bit of a conversation about like can't miss bands that have really developed more recently. So here's my brief recap. So like I started talking about record collecting for the first, decades of my life. So for the first 20 years, they're kind of my like the formative years, right? Records that sort of develop a sense of taste and how my record collecting was going to go in the decades to follow, like really important records for me. I talked about these and showed them off last week. And then the next decade, so from the time I'm 20, hey, how's it going, Mike? 20 to 30, like key bands and records. I think these are, my completest bands, right? Like I'll try and hunt down everything in their catalog, bands that I feel sort of connected to on some emotional level. And from there, this tonight's going to be talking about sort of the next decade. So from 2014 to 2024, it's important for me because it was, it's a decade of my life from 30 to 40 years old. So I followed that up with just some talking points regarding end of year lists. So just some thoughts from last night for anyone who caught it. Last week I spoke about how they tend to favor sort of younger bands, debut records, debut artists. So four of my top 10 from last night were debut albums. For those who potentially missed it, the records I'm referring to were, I brought up the debut record by Phaethon, which is a epic heavy metal band. Debut record from Secrets, it's like a symphonic black metal project. Thanotherion, which is like a Black Death sort of deal, members from Ulthar. And Bog Ore, kind of a sludgy thing with some krautrock influences. So all those debut records, but then to kind of follow that up, there were another two records, so 6 out of the 10 that had 2 albums or less. So a lot of younger projects made my end of year list. Defeated Sanity being the oldest out of the entire catalog, right? They got started essentially in the 90s, but didn't release an album until 2004. That was the oldest band I had on my end of year selection last night. So tonight, I kind of wanted to focus on, like, if we're not going to rate, bands that are still active in 2024, but are putting out consistent killer music, right? So 2 of the bands that I'm showing off here, so the Aldridge release and the Capilla Ardiente release, both of those, my top 2 records for the year, they're younger bands, but more importantly, like, there's a sense of momentum and they consistently put out incredibly high quality records. And that's kind of be the subject of tonight's stream. They would qualify for the kind of things I'm be talking about tonight. From last year, 2 bands that would potentially qualify for this: Witch Hazel and Malacarpatin, right? Younger bands, but always putting out high quality stuff. So both of these records would have been on my top 10 from 2023, if anyone's interested. Here are the qualifications. Okay, so this is completely like a weird, an arbitrary list I put together. But here are the requirements in order to make sort of the list tonight for me. 1, the band must still be active. At the earliest, the debut full-length release has to be in the year 2014 or in the years after. So they could have a debut record from like 2017, 2015, 2019, etc. But they at least need to have 3 full lengths. And then the consistent, strength of these albums would give you confidence to buy their 4th record completely blind. That's kind of what I thought about in terms of bands that have defined the past decade for me, and the things that you would sort of need to, a threshold you would need to pass in order to qualify. So we're going to talk about those bands here tonight. In the background, I've got one playing. I'll just take a brief moment to talk about that. So this is from last year, No Dawn for the Caligula's Night by Convocation. I'll drop this down here so you can see a better glimpse of that. But this is a project, I think members from Dark Buddha Rising and Desolate Shrine. So some Finnish band members. I guess Dark Buddha Rising is kind of an experimental doom band, and Desolate Shrines more of like a death metal thing. But this is like in terms of a younger funeral doom project. I think they've put out 3 records here, and they'd be on my list. But they're playing in the background. You can't hear them. Be for my entertainment, not yours. Let's get into my list for this evening. Okay. So first band up. Okay. Before I guess I missed this slide here. I should talk about bands that are not qualified or disqualified. All the bands that you see here: Inanna, Evoken, Obsequii, Embrace of Thorns, Cultist of Ghouls, Enter Arma, Evil Feast, Lord Vicar. All of these bands for me are like, they can do no wrong. They get everything right. But won't be on an end of year list just because they've been around for too long, right? Some of these bands are like Evoken's, I think, first record comes around 99, 98. So just as an example, like some of the other bands, Inter Arma and Inanna, I want to think their first record comes around 2010. So they're too old to make the list tonight for me. Band number 1 that I want to talk about, and I think is probably worth bringing up, since we have a brand new release coming here in early 2025. So we've got a brand new Havukruunu record coming up, but for those who are not familiar, let's just take a quick listen to what Havukruunu has to offer. Right, so a Finnish pagan black metal band, just super consistent. I think it's one of those things like, is it going to blow me away? But I absolutely no. There's other bands who I think this Aldridge release this past year kind of was the tipping point for that band. But Havukruunu, I don't think, puts out a bad record. They've got 3 out here. The 4th will be coming out in February. Just a reliable pagan black metal project that continues to do like really, really good things. Obviously, they got like they just signed to Svart Records. I think there's a single out right now, people who want to check it out. But hopefully moving from Knockermott to Svart Records is going to be a little bit more conducive to people who want to get a hold of them. They're probably, I know that it's really difficult to get your hands on some. I think I pulled one aside. I will be showing off album covers in addition to like actual records that I've collected. I didn't want to bring everything from every band, but here's the debut. And I'll just pull this up here quick. So here's the debut record. Yeah. Knockermott Records, I don't think they had quite like the reach and probably the scale of an operation to sort of meet the demand for this band. So hopefully Svart Records, I know that their pre-order is up right now if you're interested, but man, yeah. Mike, I don't know if this is, you should definitely check them out. I want to say they're pretty well known at this point, but I could just be, in my circle. So I know Devin seems like, yep, full send. And yep. Oh, hey. Were they at Emma? Oh, they're at MDF in 2025, Jeff? That's cool. I don't know if they played the States before. Maybe someone in the chat can answer that for me, but I didn't know that they had actually been touring stateside. Maybe that's something that's in the works for them now that they're on a new label. But yeah, just like a very reliable, consistent sort of Finnish black metal project people to check out. Sweet. Awesome. So for those interested, we'll move on from our first band. I'll give you one more glimpse into Havukruunu. Okay. Awesome. So let's move on from Havukruunu. We'll move to our second band here. Like last night, I talked about how the Critical Defiance release, like that was a Chilean thrash band that I was super pumped to pick up their third release, and it ended up being sort of the disappointment for my year in 2024. Misconception, their debut from 2019, I still think is an absolute classic. And probably one of the better thrash records I've heard in a long time. But in terms of a Chilean thrash band that is proved to be consistent, has 3 records out since 2014, and continues to sort of impress. This is Demoniac. Now, they play a brand of like blackened thrash, but there's also some interesting sort of prog influences. If you're into the likes of like Mekong Delta, or we just listened to a Death Row record for Album Club not that long ago. There's horns involved here. If you're like the progressive and sort of experimental side of thrash metal, Demoniac's a good one to check out. They're equally as sort of savage. So let's just take a quick listen and see what Demoniac's all about. You get everything there in Spanish. That's one of the things they also have not compromised on. So all their lyrics are in Spanish. Their Nube Negra came out in 2023 last year, and I absolutely loved that release. But yeah, there's some weird sort of wandering sort of arrangements. Like I mentioned, flute, horn. I don't want to say that's like a complete avant-garde jazz thing going on. But oh, it's all good. Hey Marty, good to see you. It is refreshing though, like one of the biggest things I have sometimes with modern thrash bands is they sound like they're trying to exploit like an old like 1980s sound, or 2, they lean too far into sort of aggression to become like relevant or to like gain some sort of acceptance. Like the Véhémence release this year, I think Toba, that one that Alan covered for Heavy Metallurgy, was hands down the thrash record of the year, in my opinion. But what I thought was problematic about it was, that's the wrong way to describe it. What kept it off my top 10 list of the year for me was that it was just that savagery, I think, ends up limiting my sort of affection for the record. I need something a little bit more than just like a nasty, like there's only so many spaces are on my shelf for a super aggressive thrash band. I need something a little bit more interesting than that. So what's this, Jeff? They're playing the same night as Skepticism and Ruin Lust. Interesting. Skepticism. So we have another Finnish connection there. That's super cool. I've never been to an MDF. Maybe one of these days I'll make it over there. I'm not that far. like a 9-hour drive, I guess, to around the Baltimore area for me. One of these years, I'll make my way. I don't know when that'll be. Soon enough here. But yeah, let's I'll wrap things up on all things Demoniac. I'll hit you with one more little glimpse of this band. All right. So moving on from Demoniac, we'll get to the third band on my list. Churchburn. I guess you want to call this. So I was first attracted to this project because Dave Suzuki of Vital Remains. That's where I followed him to this project on, I believe, Armageddon, which is like a smaller label out of the Northeast area. And this is much more of like almost, I want to say a death doom, but more of a sludge riffing style. Like the darkness to this record and the way they've chosen to sort of write a lot of the rhythm section. So like the way the drumming is going on underneath, almost sounds like a death doom project. Like that side of this band feels much more closer associated with the death metal side of things, and given Suzuki's past, that makes sense. But the way they've decided to produce the guitars, and I believe Dave, who's doing the vocals here, he also has like a decidedly sludge sort of vocal approach to this. I'll take a quick glimpse into what Churchburn has to offer and show that off for you. Yeah, so I forgot I should mention here. I want to go back and I'll drop this off. Forgot to show off my Demoniac physical. So this was the debut record. I want to just briefly go back to that. And you can tell by looking at the album artwork, it's a little bit more on the proggy side of things. But shout out to Witch's Brew. They're going to show up here twice tonight. Like, don't sleep on that label for thrash bands. Two of the bands that I in the thrash world that are going to show up tonight got their start over on Witch's Brew, and it seems to be like a label that will sign sort of very young up and coming projects before they move on to a sort of a larger label, which in some ways I feel bad for them, but nevertheless, like, you know, Demoniac's over on Invictus now. That's like their international distribution. I think they have some other smaller labels. You know, Armageddon here put out this Churchburn release. There we go. Try and get away from the glare. But their last full length and the vinyl release came through, I believe, Translation Loss. I think I'm correct about that, but I want to say they independently handled the CD pressing, and then Translation Loss put out the vinyl. But out of all, like, there's not a lot of young sludge bands that are coming out right now that I'm really in love with, at least that have meet the criteria, having 3 full lengths out that are continually doing well. Churchburn is the exception, and I think in a world where you have so many sort of slow, heavy doom sort of oriented bands right now, especially ones that are flirting with death metal, having a project like this that ties in a whole lot of sludge is unique. With the added element is, how rare do you get a sludge band that has Suzuki's kind of neoclassical solo guitar flair. It's really unique in terms of a contributing factor to a sludge band, and it makes them very much sort of stand out in a crowd, especially in a genre where diversity is not necessarily the standout characteristic. So Churchburn is going to be the third band we bring out here. And before we move on, I'll hit you with one more sample of what they have to offer. All right. Haven't upset the YouTube algorithm here, which is good. No one's censoring me. Keep my clips short and easy. Moving on here. So we go from Churchburn. We're going to move from them to a straight up doom band. Poland represent. Okay. So Monasterium. They share members with another epic doom band from Poland called Evangelist. Monasterium being the more recent project out of the two. But what's unique about, I guess, for some reason in my mind, Capilla Ardiente and Monasterium sort of work in the same world, in the sense that Capilla Ardiente and Procession share members, Monasterium and Evangelist share members, and all, I guess, 4 projects combined are some of the best sort of epic doom artists going on right now. So that sort of like concentration of talent in a genre that already is very limited is a super cool factor. There, once again, another being out of Poland. I want to say Sun and Moon. Okay, 9 Records. I'm sorry, 9 Records, which I believe is a Polish doom label, is putting out their stuff right now. The physical release I will show you here is from 20 and 23. This is Cold Are the Graves. Let me just drop this down so I can show off my physical there. But if you are not familiar with this project, let me just give you a brief glimpse about what Monasterium is all about. Something you should also know, I like my epic heavy metal and epic doom vocalist with a little bit of personality. You can tell it's one of those things where like the vocals, you can tell English is not his first language. And for me, that's like an endearing factor for a lot of these bands. I enjoy that. So when I'm playing the clips here, or if you get a chance to check them out on your own, you'll probably be able to pick up sort of a very interesting inflection. But I'm all good with that. So what's also, I wouldn't say they do a great cover. I think it's Evangelist and Capilla Ardiente had a split a while ago, and they did an interesting sort of like cover split. I want to say it was either Monasterium or Evangelist covered. They did like an epic doom cover of Mayhem's Freezing Moon. It's a sweet cover. You might want to check it out on probably you can catch it on YouTube. I doubt it's going to be on like a streaming service. But just because it's like a very small sort of independent label, I believe. But their cover of Mayhem's Freezing Moon is pretty sweet in my opinion. So if you're not listening to either Procession or Capilla Ardiente, Monasterium and Evangelist are going to be my recommendations for epic doom bands right now. Let's move on here from Monasterium. Okay, here we get in the chat here. Yeah, all right. I may take you up on that, Jeff, in the coming years. And then I dig that band though. I still don't measure. So you and Alan are on that train, Mike. The thing for me is that bothers me about Atlantean Codex is their vocalist just sounds way too polished for my sensibilities in epic doom. I like epic doom that is a little bit rougher around the edges, and that band is just so well manicured. That's the only way I can describe it, is like they're probably one of the best bands in the style right now. Totally like a brilliant arrangements. That sort of wall of sound, classic, but it's always sort of the one thing that, yeah, well, at least we can come to some agreement there. That bothers me about that band that I just can't get over is just they sound a little bit too pretty for me. Okay, so let's move on. I'll give you a glimpse here of Monasterium, and we'll move on to the next band. Yeah, big falsetto here. Okay, moving on. Band number 5. Man, out of all the death metal bands that have emerged, I guess over the past decade, especially ones that I want to say feature very young members. I guess I should qualify that, right? Like, I off the top of my head, I don't know how. We can look it up here. But I had to venture to guess the dudes in Faceless Burial. They're probably somewhere in. Yes, I'm glad you enjoyed that. Faceless Burial to me is like the younger death metal band that consistently gets better and better with each release. I think their debut came out in 2017. What was cool about it is I think it came out on Iron Lung, which let me double check. Yeah, Iron Lung handled at least the vinyl pressing of that. And I want to say that is 100% a connection with Max, who is the star of the show for me. He's the drummer for Internal Rot. And obviously with that band having like a, grindcore and punk connection, it makes sense why they would be on a label like Iron Lung. However, like they get picked up later for the one I'm going to be showing off here. This is Spatiation. Meisako Onoho did this one. I mean, I know this may be sort of the death metal du jour at the moment. Faceless Burial is going to be the one that I go and pick up every single time. I'm sure when I jump on the stream with Jeff and the crew next Saturday, there'll be a discussion regarding Blood Incantation, which is totally fair. We almost got into it last night. We were able to sort of avoid that going off the rails. But I'm sure it'll come up, knowing how much Jeff and Rick and Logan, I don't know how many, and you got a solid crew showing up, Jeff. So I imagine a handful of them will be bringing that record to the conversation. But for me, it's Faceless Burial. What's up, Lando? Yeah, thanks for showing up, man. I know you might be YouTube out at the moment right now, but I appreciate you stopping by. And we had a great time last night. We got through everyone's picks in the 3-hour sort of limit, and things went a little bit long just for casual purposes, but I had a great time. It was cool getting a chance to join in. Anyway, let's take a quick listen to what Faceless Burial is all about. mean, for me, they've got a little bit of like a tech thing going on or a prog thing going on. That's fine. I actually enjoy my death metal a little bit more on the technical side. Um, I'm not so much a meat potatoes kind of guy. So they meet that criteria for me. Coming from Australia, you know, Devin mentioned Cemetery Urn. They always seemed a little bit more like on the blackened side for me. I don't know if you feel the same way, Devin, which is not a bad thing by any means. The cool thing about Faceless Burial is when I'm talking about Australia, I'm always going to talk about Stargazer. That for me is like, you know, they showed up early when I talked about bands that I feel I am a completist towards. And Stargazer is like you know, the highest level of death metal that kind of came around for my generation when things were getting a little bit sort of, I don't know, we want to call it an avant-garde era for death metal. But bands like them and Ulcerate coming out of New Zealand were a big deal, and I still love them. The fact that Faceless Burial, like, sure, you're going to get plenty of gore guts going on here. There's a little bit more of a 90s sound to them, but for me, like, this is the band. They come out with a new record. I'll 100% check it out. Man, there will be upwards of 18 people joining throughout the night. It's gonna okay. I'm saying we might, it might be 12 hours. It might be a full day. You know, it's all good. There's even this year, we were people talking in the chat last night. Like the first one I thought of is Mitochondrion. That band, I'd waited, you know, whatever, a decade for the Mitochondrion release to come out. And it came out last year, and I was super excited for it, but I still haven't picked it up. Like, I knew it was going to be a difficult listen and require a whole lot of time, but it just totally, like, I'm 100% with you, Marty, in the sense that, like, bands that I love, bands that I waited for a long, long time for them to come out with a new record, they finally did it, and I still haven't picked it up. So shame on me, right? What the hell am I talking about? Okay, so I think we've had enough here with Faceless Burial. I'm going to hit you with one more clip from the more recent record, and we'll move on. Okay. So we move on from Faceless Burial there. Ambush. Okay, where's my ambush? So this was probably one of the more challenging parts of putting together this list. As much as sort of the new wave of traditional heavy metal thing has been around, you know, there's not enough of them that I feel have consistently been good. You know, Witch Hazel is my maybe the exception there, but like many of the bands either have not put out enough quality material. Like I think Traveler Alan brought up last night, and I'm not like, I haven't touched base. I listened to their debut record and it was good, whatever, but totally lost touch with the band. Zoller and Alan disagree. Zoller says the first two are better. Alan says the third one is the one I need to check out. So maybe I need to go check out Traveler. I know, Mike, you're probably a fan of that. I don't know if you've listened to the new Traveler, Mike, and you've any thoughts there to chime in, but Jeff's giving me a hard time. Okay. 8 hours. Keeping it under 8. We'll see. It's all good, man. I'm giving you a hard time, but I know it'll be a fun affair, and it'd be cool to actually, you know, go through a more expansive list as well, since I really don't do a lot of like collection updates on my channel. Once again, thank you so much for joining me. Just so we're clear, for letting me join, I should say. So Cheers, Jeff. Anyway, I'm sure Lando will probably. I know one thing we probably should do is go into the chat and just put a list of, for everyone who contributed, just put our list so people do want to go make a shorter sort of, compilation of everyone. We can do that. But yeah. Okay. Faceless Burial. I would imagine, yeah, they're good friends. I totally think they're operating in the same world for me. So you're talking about the Traveler album, Mike? Yeah. Well, I agree with you here. And for me, Ambush is the one. This is just like they are not reinventing anything. This is 100% like dead center. When I think you talk about traditional heavy metal, it sounds like this band. Whatever the inference, right, that we're talking about. Let me just hit you with a brief glimpse of Ambush. Burning like a fire, boiling in your head. Yeah, band out of Sweden, on High Roller Records. They just quality trad every single time. Great vocalist. This is a band that I don't anticipate changing in any way, shape, or form since their first record came out in 2014. And that's 100% fine with me. Just keep pumping out. Like, look at the album artwork. They kind of have a theme, right? They're not doing anything too new, but every single time hit the mark. What's interesting is like you listen to a band like Enforcer, and I know when they first came around, there's a lot of that Swedish scene, Wolf, Ram. They are in a lot of ways are responsible for kind of getting things rolling. But Enforcer to me is almost turned a little bit more glam in some ways. It's so far beyond what they started as. I want to say Diamonds came out in 2010, and I think is probably the high point for me in terms of their output. But they've really fallen off for me, and luckily sort of Ambush has come to the rescue, rolling in here and taking that spot. I'll hit you with one more glimpse of what Ambush has to offer. Just killer vocalist. All right. Love that band. So we'll move on here from band number 6 and move from Ambush. Oh, I'll show off the record I had picked up for, my physical sort of one I have here. This is their debut, Firestorm. I would like to tell you that there's something categorically different between these releases, and there might be slight changes in terms of production, but it's so fractional, it's not really worth, going into at length. Heavy metal from 1980 to 1984, all over this. So that era, you will find High Roller, as much as they're sort of releasing or reissuing stuff from that era, that kind of gives you an idea what's going on here. Yeah. I mean, best place to grab. I mean, I don't know. There anywhere that you can find High Roller issue, they do a lot of, I think, distribution here in the States. So I don't think you're going to have a hard time finding Ambush, Jeff. Hey, Kev, good to see you, man. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, you say it sounds like Looks Like Kill by Motley Crue. They I could 100% see that. Except they have a much better vocalist than Motley Crue, because I don't have time for that. It's so much better vocally. Yeah, dude, 100%. Dawkins, you got it. You guys are gonna, if you like that kind of stuff, if that heavy metal from the early 80s appeals to you, if that's your jam, like, you are going to love this band. They do it in a way that is not like, how do I want to say this? They're seriously having a good time, but they're trying to make like sincere heavy metal records. They aren't just like whatever. What's that band? Is it Steel Panther? It's like a joke band. Yeah, like that's 100% not my thing. Ambush is quality heavy metal. You will dig it if you're into whatever. Yes, Dawkins, Rat. This band's from Sweden, so they know their heavy metal. So I need to move on from Ambush here, but can't recommend them enough. Okay, moving on. Album or band number 7 for our discussion tonight. I don't even call this is Véhémence. There's a French accent in here that I cannot nail, but nevertheless, I will carry on here. This band, they do like, it's folky, it's medieval. You can kind of tell by the album artwork, but like another band that I would kind of venture into this space would be one from France's Darkenhold, which is kind of castle-y, atmospheric black metal. They play something that's a little bit more aggressive, and it has to do with like the vocal register seems to be a little bit gruffer. The first clip I'm gonna play is from their debut release, and you can tell it's kind of a rougher black metal mix. So here's the first glimpse into Véhémence. Right, I just wanted to get a glimpse how sort of the production there sounds kind of rough. Thank you. The 100%, Devin. Darkenhold do not get enough attention. And if you like that kind of atmospheric castle stuff, you should 100% check them out. But yeah, what makes, I think, this Véhémence a little bit Véhémence, I do not know how to pronounce this correctly. I apologize. Cool for me though is with subsequent releases, like I have Par le Sang Verse. This is the second. I'll show my little physical moment here. This is when Antique Records put this out, the alternative, album artwork, but this is their second full length. Yeah, Marty's chiming in there on the Darkenhold love. Yeah, well done. You think you could probably get the vinyl for a better price somewhere on Discogs. I could be lying about that, but yeah, it's a high roller thing. So good luck, Jeff. Thank you, Mike. You're over in, I believe, Mike, you're in Europe, right? Are you in France or Germany? But I do appreciate you helping me out in the pronunciation here. Anyway, with subsequent releases, this band has got a little bit more aggressive. And I just mean that, like, the drumming, the vocal style, there's sort of these chant choral vocals that go on. The songwriting's become increasingly more diverse. So it's not just like a raw black metal project. And in terms of like this French medieval style going forward, I think they're probably doing it better than anyone. But on Antique Records, it's difficult to get a hold of that stuff. There's very limited distribution for this band, and trying to get a hold of it. It's pretty hard. I trying to like I'll always, if there's someone in the States that has it, I 100% you grab it. Yeah, I do have any Orla. I do have the is it the Spiritless Events? It's the one that I can grab it here. Hold on. But it has like the sort of swirling wind on the album cover. Let me try and hunt it down here for you. I don't know. It's like from their 2 records ago, from like 2017, I want to say, Devin. If you're in front of a computer. Yeah. And Pesame is Russian, right? Yeah. There you go. Russian when you get a chance. I do own them. I do have their first record, I want to say, Devin. And I like them a lot. Marty gave me a hard time about that because I brought them up one night in Album Club, and they're share members with in a band called Womb Ripper. And he thought that was ridiculous. Good luck to you, Jeff. I hope you can find some of that. Between that and the Heir Apparent, I'm helping your wallet do a little lightening the load, if you will. Yeah. That's the one I mean, Devin. That's an awesome record. I love that record. Yeah, 2018. Thank you. Yeah, that record's awesome. That's my favorite one from them. But their last one from 2020, 2021 didn't quite grab me in the same way. But it's still good. Like, I still like that band, but for me, Véhémence is, hopefully I got that right, Mike. Germany. Perfect. Yeah. The international appeal. Appreciate you, Mike. Yeah, this is the band that's probably doing it better than anyone right now. So with that, I'll move on to our next clip here, and then we'll go to band number 8. All right. Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. We kind of have one job here, Kevin. That's to listen to stuff and hopefully turn someone else on. What's cool about these bands is it's like they have more than one release for you to hunt down. So if you can't find one of them in your area, hopefully one out of the 3 or 4 records that I'll be showing off from the projects tonight, you'll be able to pick up. So let's move on to number 8. Rapture. Okay, this is my other Witch's Brew reference for tonight. Band out of Greece. And there's right now like a couple of bands. I want to say, because they're signed to $20 Spin, I think Laceration, it's a good band, a really good band. But they're like probably one of the better known death thrash projects going on right now. And that's all good. They're like, I really enjoyed, I want to say, the record from a couple of years ago. That might be their debut. They had a new one this year that didn't quite grab me. I don't know if anyone heard the last Laceration record and wants to go to bat and sort of say that that's one that I need to revisit. But for me, Rapture is the best sort of death thrash band right now. They've got a little bit that, as they've moved through the years, they become a little bit more like Reaping Corpse. They're kind of Oblivion. I don't want to say they're just, the level of play has become more intelligent, but they aren't by any means a prog band or anything like that. Yeah, so the physical I grabbed here to show off is the debut on Witch's Brew. Like this tiny little label that's just signing these no-name bands that end up having these big futures. You can keep your eye on that. But yeah, so that is Rapture, band out of Greece. For many people, like I think they're on FDA records right now. And let's just give you a brief glimpse into their second release. All right, yeah, that's the first two albums are 100%. Yeah, Ripping Corpse, Malevolent Creation. Well said. What up, Phil? How you doing? Good to see you. Oh, hey. Well, there's another person who appreciates Rapture. Awesome. And Tony, yeah, Marty and Alan definitely keep me filled in. Though I want to say I do have a lack of ninja, dinosaur, cape warrior, wizard stuff in my collection. So Marty's working hard to make sure that my Windrose and whatever power metal collection continues to grow. He's got me into the Glory Hammer though. So what can I say? I really can't complain. But good to see you tonight, Phil, Tony. Yeah, so we'll jump back into this Rapture release, but they've been, I mean, I think debut records in 2015. And since then they've gotten there's still time. There's still time. We'll see, Marty. But yeah, they just continue to improve and go under. I don't know if it moving to like an American label is going to be what brings them to the forefront, but this style right now is super popular, and I just wish more people. I will continue to sort of sing their praises every time I get a chance. But for the thing that's tricky for me is like, this is a band that should be dolphin metal, should be more visible. And I don't know, like at this point, if I will continue to talk about them on an end of year list just because more people need to hear them, or if I will kind of get like, yeah, of course, I know the Rapture release guaranteed to be end of year. There's probably hopefully a new death thrash band or a new thrash band that I want people to know about, which is kind of the dilemma I got going here. Yeah, Greece is not known for its thrash. That is true. That is true. That probably doesn't help, but I really do think if it was just, they had a greater American distribution and awareness, they probably more people would be into them for sure. But let's move on here from Rapture. I'm going to give you one more clip on their latest release, I think from 2021. Sweet. Okay. It's funny. You say Halloween. I actually enjoyed the Gamma Ray Land of the Free a little bit more than that might be blasphemous to you, Mike. It's definitely, I know there are some people who may be offended. Yeah, if they were on Dark Descent, that'd be whatever. Or like an American death metal label, I think they would be doing much better than. But we'll move on here from Rapture, band number 9 for the list. Purification. Okay, this band is a little bit tricky because they have only been around since I want to say the past 5 years. And in that time period, they have put out, so their demo is in 2018, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 full lengths in that time period. And they're a little bit like Aldridge in that regard, in the sense that very young project, but like one of those, I don't want to say, 100% a project of a digital age, but the way they're sort of churning out content on a very consistent basis, it probably, I imagine to some level, like, works against them. I don't know if anyone in the chat like has opinions about bands who are putting out records at this sort of rate. Obviously, I brought to the Svartadodus record last night, the Secrets, and that guy's got like 5,000 different black metal projects. I don't know for me if that works in their favor. Same thing with Purification here. Like they're probably my favorite American doom band. And I think they're probably, one, are not on a label, two, playing in a style that's not too popular, three, just like turning out a brand new record every 5 minutes. But if you haven't heard them, let's take a quick glimpse into what Purification is all about. Turn on something here in the background for me, but yeah, the Purification record or album I wanted to show off here is my physical copy. This is the debut, and it's just a 2-piece. At this point, I think they were guitarless. Destruction of the Wicked. It's 100% for me like I want to say I discovered this band in the midst of COVID. I will always like eternally associate them with that time period. But this is from 2019. So I guess it was a little bit late to the Purification party. Band out of Portland. Anyway, they've since incorporated sort of guitars, and I guess they're a little bit less of like the raw sort of doom thing that's just bass drums, but they continue to churn out quality material, guaranteed. As soon as they come out with a new record, I'm going to pick it up. Yeah, there's definitely like an affectation to his singing style, Mike. I totally get what you're saying there. The Ethelstone came out in last year, and they moved off of Wrathchild Records. I don't know what the status of that label is right now, because Cardinal Folly, another Finnish doom band, they left them and they moved to Soul Cellar. So I wonder if there's like trouble in paradise over at Wrathchild Records. But Purification, this last one came out on a it works. You should, I mean, you may have heard about this, Devin, but you should check it out, man. It's if you don't, they've got like 4 other records that have come out since that you can peer into. But yeah, Ethelstone that came out last year was an interesting sort of. This band's from Portland, Kev. So if you're curious, it shouldn't be like the biggest issue in terms of finding their records is just going to be the quantity. Like I don't think Ethelstone that came out last year just came out on CD, and I want to say it was a very limited, like, I don't know if the band pressed it themselves or who was actually distributing it, but oof, more on vinyl. Man, that's that one also must have, I don't know who, do you know, Jeff, who pressed that? Because I don't know if that would be the Candlelight years for Bluthaus Nord, but it's an interesting, that record on vinyls. It's already a crazy ass listen. What a weird record. Anyway, don't want to get too distracted. Purification. Well, we're almost here at the end for my top 10. I'll hit you with one more glimpse into what Purification has to offer. Right? Super weird vocalist. But they've definitely got to be doing some drugs. I mean, good on them. But let's move on from Purification. This last band, kind of surprised me and snuck in at the last moment. Phobocosm, right? They just, I realized 2014 was their full length, their debut full length. And then last year, 9 years later, they release a third record. And according to my criteria, that gets them in the books here. But what's interesting about this project for me is I remember when they first turned up, they were kind of getting grouped in the sort of dissonant death metal world. And now going back and revisiting them, they're interesting sort of I probably would group them in closer with the influence that Dead Congregation had. So it's an interesting combination, right, of that time period where you have sort of bands getting closer to sort of what Incantation is doing. Right, it's the Disma explosion that happened. And then this other time where you get really, Simon brought together Adversarial last night. There was a Mitochondrion. Phobocosm during that time period, I think, were grouped in with that world of death metal. But now I just hear them as this interesting, sort of crushingly heavy, sort of dark death metal band that has a very interesting sort of I don't want to say modern approach to melody, right? They don't sound like Ulcerate at all. It's much more Northeast death metal. Anyone who's maybe not heard of this band, here's a brief glimpse into the destruction that is Phobocosm. But I don't know if it's because of their absence over the past 9 years. Oh man, interesting. Maiden Birds, handmade birds. That's a label. Interesting. Super strange, but yeah, Phobocosm. They just continue to I think they've at some level, because of their absence, they've left unnoticed. It was a welcome return last year when they showed up, but I don't know in terms of end of year list. I don't think a lot of people talked about them. I could be wrong about that. But this is a band that does the dark, heavy death metal in a way that, because they kind of got grouped into that dissonant stuff that was happening around 2010, I think has a little bit of a different sort of slant on it. And I appreciate it. I don't anticipate there's going to be too many changes in their style, but it's a welcome approach than other bands who are just trying to do straight up 90s death metal worship. I think there's a very sort of unique modern approach to how they're sort of trying to navigate melody. But yeah, so here's a one more in closing thoughts. Last little bit on Phobocosm. All right. Super heavy stuff. So that closes out sort of my bands that don't miss over the past decade. Oh, Marty's chiming in here. Handmade Birds pressing on binder and distro. Man, into the Phobocosm record or into Mort? I think More is a much more challenging listen than anything Phobocosm's ever put out. But kind of as I close here with like the top 10 bands, like I briefly talked about this. Here are some examples. Oh yeah, Mort. That is a wild, very ambient, weird listen. It's not a black metal listen in my opinion, but experimental stuff for sure. Here are a couple of bands that like are newer. I've only put out 2 records that I think are kind of on the cusp, or I'm paying attention to what they do in the future. So obviously Sacred Outcry was I listened to that record to death last year, and in terms of a younger power metal project has kind of got me on board. Still, yeah, one of the best records I've heard in recent years. But the Asphodelis, I mean, that style of like early Catatonia, Finnish death doom, that's like 100% my thing. I'm looking forward to see what they do in the future. Their record from last year also was great. And then Profane Order, is another band that like I've got my like paying a lot of attention to right now. And I hope that they kind of move their sort of crust meets sort of Black Death thing forward in a way that probably I feels a little bit messier or less cleaned up than their last record. I really liked their debut, so we'll see what they have going on in the future. I hope they come out with a new one, Marty. It's they took a year off. The first record essentially was like 2 decades in the making, so hopefully we get a new one from them in the coming years. Okay, perfect. So that's really all I got for you right now. Thank you for kind of jumping in a quick little over an hour stream. This is fun, but let's see. So in closing, just to kind of follow up on some stuff, if anyone's curious as to what my criteria was when putting together this list, I'll just briefly show it to you one more time. In case anyone wants to jump in with their thoughts in terms of what have been the best bands over the past decade. In closing, I guess, yes. So, Jeff, next Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, in what will promises to be a fun, action-packed, 18-person packed house affair, 24 records in 2024. It'll be cool. I'll be able to pull out a whole lot more and show it off and talk about new records from this past year with a bunch of good people. On Wednesday upcoming here, we've got Master Plan with Album Club. So if that's be this Wednesday, I don't remember the name of the album. Maybe Marty will throw it in the chat there if anyone wants to join in on Heavy Metallurgy on Wednesday night. Next Saturday for Jeff's stream, Gas Mask and Hand Grenades. And what else? I don't have anything upcoming here. Oh, I just also anyone self-titled. There we go. Thanks, Marty. If you missed last night's end of year stream on Heavy Metallurgy, you can go check out some of my choices in terms of the records that I'd recommend for this past year. It was a really good time. I think that's going to cover all the bases that I have for you. I'll take a little bit. I've spent a good amount of my time sitting in front of a computer doing this the past couple of days, but I appreciate everyone for coming back and sort of spending a little bit of time after Friday night. I know going kind of sometimes back to back like that will be exhausting, but I appreciate everyone who joined me. If you have a list of your own, bands that you think over the past decade that kind of meet this criteria, please throw them in the chat. Let me know. If you think I'm horrendously wrong anywhere, that's okay too. But please let me know if anyone has any thoughts in terms of band. Like, here's the criteria for you. So I brought, Ungfell maybe would be another one. I've got the Convocation I brought up earlier. Yeah, you listened to the new Diocletian? Awesome. Phil, I don't know. I thought it was a much better record than the one they put out in 2019. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Accusal Intrusion. I have not heard of that one. I can check that one out here. Thanks, Jeff, for the recommendation. They all know what Marty continues to acknowledge the fact that he's lost this debate. You can go scream into your pillow tonight because that Eternus record is a black metal listen. But anyway, let me wrap this up here. I'll see everyone. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Phil, you're with, I think Devin had also mentioned that he thought the last Diocletian was kind of a letdown. So it's a lot better. Thank you. All right. Anyway, let me jump out of here. Wednesday night for Album Club. Next Saturday for an all-night extravaganza with Jeff over at Gasmaster Hand Grenades. Yeah, Gassundrian they've got a couple. I really liked War Against All too. Okay, LA. I Avoid Hanger, always putting out good stuff. All right. Thank you, Jeff, for the recommendation. You guys rule. I'll see you guys, if not Wednesday, then next Saturday for sure. It'll be a good time. Thanks so much for stopping by, giving me an hour of your time on a Saturday. I will see you guys later. Bye.